inequalities in China are everywhere. Any port you look, you will see. Emerging Economies by Professor Pedro Videla, Gemba 2014, Tyan, Cindy Hondong, Rodrigo Maia, Juan Bleda, Roman Tyan, Stephane Metral and Fernando Cordeiro. Gender Inequality in China. There were a time when women in China were condemned to pain. However, during the Mao's era, from 1949 to 1978, Chinese women's status changed from family private person to a social person, and Chinese women gained the same status, in the legal sense, as men. Until 1978, China was a socialist planned economy that promoted gender equalities as one of the key principles of societal organization. In international terms, one would say that gender inequality in China is relatively low. In 2011, China ranked 35th on the United Nations Gender Inequality Index among 142 countries for which the index was calculated. China ranked right after United Kingdom, and higher than US, which is ranked 42nd. Notwithstanding, only 30% of university students are women, and more than 70% of the illiterate Chinese are also women. After it embarked on economic reforms, gender inequalities in the labor markets increased and emerged as a significant economic and social issue. Generally, women have 30% lower income on average. Also, women have a lower level of occupation. Women experience forced early retirement, which results in the problems of employment stability. And women have a higher laid-off ratio. There is the gender discrimination in hiring too. And the majority of the higher positions are occupied by men. For instance, women representatives constituted only 20% of seats in national parliament. Another side of gender inequality is related to one family, one child policy. Most of Chinese families prefer to have male child. In China, there are about 20% more young men than young women. As a result, there is a new kind of crime. Matrimonial crime arises in China. Sometimes, girls could be kidnapped and then sold to the husband's family. Nevertheless, women in China still have little opportunities to achieve success in politics, business, culture, science, or simply to enjoy the benefits of the active participation in economic and social life. Inequalities in transportation. Nearly 90% of Chinese ride a bike to go to work. Most of them cannot afford to buy a car. However, they consider bicycles as the mean of the past. In comparison to the other members of the BRIC group, car ownership in China is still low, reaching 85 vehicles per thousand people, 1/4 of Brazil and Russia's index. Only in 2015, car ownership in China is expected to achieve 1960s level of developed countries. Now, this is unequal. But imagine if every Chinese starts to use a car. Or a motorcycle. China's petroleum demand would exceed total world production if it reaches the US vehicle penetration levels. China simply cannot replicate the actual automotive model. The level of pollution would be unsustainable. Traffic issue would be impossible to manage. On the other hand, there are alternatives. Rural versus urban income inequality in China. until China breaks down the barriers between town and countryside, it cannot unleash the buying power of its people, or keep its economy booming. This inequality is closely and reciprocally intertwined with migration. Inequality between source and destination areas is widely believed to be one of the most important factors that drive economic migration. This is illustrated in the Harris-Todaro model of rural-urban migration. In China, the urbanization increased following the initiation of the reform and opening policy. By the end of 2012, the mainland of China had a total urban population of more than 700 million, or more than 50% of the total population, rising from 26% in 1990. In 2025, it is expected that 70% of Chinese population will live in cities with more than 1 million inhabitants. Gini coefficient, is it all as bad as it seems? In 2012, for the first time in 12 years, China's National Bureau of Statistics reported its Gini coefficient. The United Nations have stated that anything above 0.4 is classified as disconcerting. But, in 2012, China scored 0.474. To put this in perspective, the best score is found in Sweden, 0.23, and the roughest can be seen in South Africa, 0.62. Over the years, it seems China has passed the tipping point in 2008. That major increases in the coefficient occur in urban and to a much lesser extent in rural areas. Yet, many skeptics suggest China's inequality is actually far greater. But, the decision to release the data now shows that the new leadership is paying attention. The government states it may be able to calculate a national Gini ratio in 2013, after it has completed an integrated investigation of rural and urban residents' income levels. The ratio has also come to the attention of local governments. Chongqing municipal government announced its last 5-year plan to bring down its Gini ratio from 0.42 to 0.35 in 2015. As a conclusion, across studies and surveys, people report a greater sense of personal satisfaction in societies with lower levels of inequality. However, lower levels of inequality, per se, do not positively impact the consumption possibilities of households. Nevertheless, with diminishing marginal utility of income, there are concrete societal level benefits to more equitable distributions. Music by David Bowie, China Girl, 1983.